Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 22 My Team Career Mode. This is episode number 15 today for the Dutch Grand Prix in Season 1. If you guys did miss the previous episode, then I implore you to go check it out at the Belgium Grand Prix, because that may be the craziest race we have this entire season. I'm still in disbelief of the results we got as a team. What we managed to pull off in that Grand Prix was nothing short of a miracle and a bit of tactical genius from yours truly. But yeah, insane stuff at the Belgian Grand Prix. Some would say quite biblical, really. And with that, well, spoiler alert, I guess, for that episode, we come into this one then with a turbocharger failure in red on the third one there. But you can see we've done quite well, actually, to spread the wear quite a lot. I mean, every icon, most of them are green or light green. That's because I've been swapping out every single component from practice into quali in the race for all these episodes, trying to spread the wear as much as we can. At some point, I think we might have to take another set, another column of engine penalties, but we'll kind of, you know, cross that bridge when we get to it. One thing that I did want to note is I'm noticing in the driver market already the focus system. I don't know what's really going on, but it seems a little bit broken because most people are in red focus, even though they're winning races or getting podiums. I don't know if that's just because it's been such a wacky first season or what. I don't know about you guys at home. If you're getting the same thing, let me know in the comments below. But I feel like either the color system of, you know, red to yellow to green focus needs to change, or the actual tangible numbers need a bit of tweaking or whatever, or a patch to kind of fix it, because it looks a bit odd that you have so many drivers doing so well, so, you know, theoretically, apparently low focus and in the red, including our driver, our teammate, Felipe Drogovic, having got on a podium for the first ever time in his F1 career, getting our team's first ever podium on this game. He's still quite low focus, so it's a bit weird, but I don't know, might just be a little bit of a bug, as there are plenty so far in this game, as we're finding out since launch. But one thing that's not bugged is our development progress in the last couple of episodes, and we've got 2 engine upgrades coming in. This will be for the ERS, I believe, and then also just a pure engine power upgrade to the pistons there. And it would appear like we actually have a decent amount of R&D points, you know, over 1,000. So I was tempted by an engine power upgrade to further boost our engine, but I noticed we're actually now, well, in the top 3 for engines. In the top 2, actually. The only engine that beats us is the Ferrari engine. We're actually ahead of the Red Bull Works team. So I went against that decision, because clearly our engine doesn't actually need more upgrades at this stage of the season. That's actually fantastic, but actually more so than shows how OP the AI are with this straight line thing, because I've got the second best engine and we're still getting done on the straights sometimes, unless obviously I'm running very low aero, as we did at Spa, which worked very well. And I'm very much going to be trying, I think, 0-0 wings at Italy next episode. But for this one, Zandvoort, we need downforce, so I don't know how it's going to go around here. But anyway, I digress. I didn't end up buying anything on the engine department. I actually went back and then bought the front downforce upgrade, because we already have the rear one pending, so pretty much just to get a balance from front to rear. So we did the practice programs, got over 2,000 R&D. That was enough to finally buy the major front downforce package. Now, that costs quite a lot because there's no discounts that I have on it, and it's a major upgrade, so quite a big hit on the R&D. So after these 2 upgrades, we might just have a bit of a holding pattern and see kind of, you know, I feel like this is the kind of time this season where you usually hear about our R&D reset, like a regulation change or whatever, and this is also maybe the time to save resource points, just anyway in general, for the winter break to upgrade the car for Season 2. So after these 2 major aero upgrades, that may be where we stop development of the car. But I'll play it by ear to see how, you know, what we need in this fight versus McLaren and AlphaTauri, of course, for P7 in the Constructors. But as you can clearly see then, we're well underway for qualifying Q1, and there is rain around at Zandvoort. Now, this circuit is an absolute roller coaster of a track. It's very tough versus the AI. Ever since this came in back into the F1 calendar and onto the F1 game for the first time, it's been insanely difficult versus the AI. So I'm kind of a little bit nervous of how this is going to go in the wet. on intermediates, but we fueled up the car for 2 consecutive laps, so we can go again, and we'll try and see how we can do on the second run. Generally speaking, I definitely go quicker on the second lap after feeling out, how late we can brake. Turn 1, actually, I was surprised how much grip I had under braking. Sebastian Vettel awkwardly catches us in the carousel left-hander. We go around the outside, still gaining about 2/10, but did scrub off a little bit of time. But as we go into the last couple of corners, then around 4/10, trying to get half a second gained here. We are quite close to Drogovic, though, because at the moment on the left-hand side, we're P9, he is in P10, so at least versus our teammate, we're actually quite equally matched. But where is the car going to be in the pecking order? I don't know. And it looks pretty dry as well, so we may be getting towards slick tyres at the end. But we do gain half a second to go quicker. We're P15, though. Drogovic down P19. So the car doesn't actually have that much pace in the wet, it would seem. But it is now time for the slick tyres, as we've got quite a few people already out on the soft compound. As we start flying laps, Sergio Perez, I don't know if he's on a flyer or not. I doubt he is, because he actually lets us by then and lets us through before that corner. So thank you very much, Sergio, for this space. And we're going to continue on now and see what we can do. But I'm wary of a reality check here. I mean, I know it was in the wet, but both myself and Drogovic down the pecking order versus that insane, miraculous Spa qualifying. So let's see what we can do. Already a second gain, though, into the carousel. As, Sergio Perez has hit us, and he's taken us out on our qualifying lap. He led us through on purpose to give us the room. Why on earth is he trying to now overtake us on the flying lap whilst he's clearly also on a flyer? The whole point of letting you through is you then brake and you give the person you just let through some room. Instead, he sends one the inside there. Now, to him, I've gone wide, but my line that I take at the carousel is kind of Ving off the carousel, because I think it gives you a good run off the corner. But obviously, the AI take a usual kind of tighter racing line around the whole thing. And now we've got a car park here. I've been given a 5-place penalty for the collision with Perez. We've got Latifi on the grass now. The Alfa Romeo's been taken out of nowhere. So Perez's incident has caused absolute havoc and chaos here at Q1. We've got side pod damage, barge board damage. The Alfa Romeo, I don't know what actually happened with Guan Yu Zhou. I think he just... he gets taken out by one of the Mercedes cars. Latifi is left to go on the grass on the right hand side because of all of this. This is like the worst position you could have a crash like this, and if this was real life, they'd definitely red flag the qualifying session, but that isn't a thing in the game. And then as I continued on, I saw Hamilton there stricken, and he's out this session, so the Mercedes man is out of Q1 then, it would seem. And in the weirdest incident ever, his left tyre and suspension just pops off. Now, I don't know whether that's a delayed physics reaction from the crash with Guan Yu Zhou, or he's legitimately just got suspension damage there. That's only just come in, maybe because of the contact with Guan Yu Zhou. But for a very first for the F1 game, an AI having suspension failure from that contact. I'm guessing what happened was Hamilton made enough contact where the suspension arm was a bit frail, and then eventually as he drove down the road, it just failed and broke his car. So I'm out of Q1. I think Perez maybe is out as well, or maybe not. Hamilton is definitely out because he was on his flying lap, or wanted to go on a flying lap. Drogovic, again, qualifies very well up there in P5. We'll see where he finishes in Q2, though. But Perez, ironically, does make it through into Q2 after all of that. But myself and Hamilton are out, and I've been handed a 5 place for that. I have. Even though, obviously, before we start the lap, Perez led us by. So at that point, I thought, okay, he's going to do that thing where he, brakes, gives me room, and he's going to have enough room for himself to go on his qualifying lap. Instead, he basically just sat behind me like some, horrendous driver on the motorway trying to tailgate you. And then my very different racing line in the carousel meant he just crashed into me. So I don't know how I've ended up with a 5-place penalty, but there we go. So with that, I talked about having to take more engine penalties probably by the end of the season. I'm going to use this opportunity to take a whole nother column of engine penalties, because we may as well, because starting from where we were, plus 5 places, we'll be at the back of the grid anyway. So appreciate that, Perez. I guess you did us a favour in that kind of way, but, looking at where Drogovic was, maybe there could have been more in qualifying. But now we have a very long race around Zandvoort on our hands from the back of the grid.
Whoa, Welcome along then to the North Sea coast and to the ZANDVOORT circuit, 25 miles away from Amsterdam, for today's Dutch Grand Prix. It's a race the great Jim Clark won on 4 occasions, leading for an astonishing total of 370 laps. A lap of this short 2.6 mile ZANDVOORT circuit then features 14 corners, 10 to the right and 4 to the left, with a 678 metre main straight into turn 1, aka Tarzan corner, which with DRS open will be the best overtaking opportunity on the track. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position, and it's Charles Leclerc in P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Perez, Russell, Fernando Alonso and Gasly, Magnussen, Mick Schumacher, Drugovich and Carlos Sainz. Stroll, Norris, they've taken a grid penalty. Yuki Tsunoda and Vettel. Bottas, Ricciardo, Esteban Ocon and Alex Albon. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. The owner driver, Joe, Latifi, they've taken a grid penalty. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? And joining me again for the race today, Natalie Pinkham. Let's start with the new Alfa Romeo driver. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within the team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do. And that has definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
I really have no clue how this is going to go around Zandvoort, because I was hoping we at least would have had a little bit of help from starting a bit further up. But from last place, this really could be a very long afternoon. It's sunny skies right now, but you may just be able to about to see on the left-hand side there, we do have rain on the way later. So looking at the pace myself and Drugovich both had on Inters in quali, obviously I know it was only 1 or 2 flying laps. I'm not looking forward to that either. So this may be a painful one. I don't know. It really may be a crash back down to reality after that insane Grand Prix at Belgium. But never say never. Let's just go out there and see what we can do on the opening lap. This may be a bit chaotic with the AI this year and this circuit just being one big roller coaster up and down. So tight in some of these corners on the opening lap. There is definitely going to be some sort of incident we can maybe try and make the most of, hopefully, I'm hoping. But from the back of the grid, alongside Latifi, here we go to 5 red lights to the Dutch Grand Prix, the home favourite on pole position, lights out. And away we go. We can see Hamilton up the road in P19 gets a good start. We get a mediocre one, but Guan Yu Zhou, bit compromising of his own line into turn 1. We're going to take it nice and easy and try and suss out a bit of room on the outside to make 2, maybe 3 overtakes. So we have a little look on Hamilton, but in the end, think better of it. But then we get sent by the Alfa Romeo, but then everyone bunches up. Bit of contact, lots of carbon fibre everywhere. And on the outside of the carousel, we've gained about 3 positions there, up into P17 before the full core safety car is called out in less than a sector. What did I say? These AI on this year's game, this circuit, always going to happen, was going to be havoc. And let's see what happened then. Sebastian Vettel, crashes into his teammate there. I think Lance Stroll even has damage as well, you know. I think both the Astons are there. And then this was further up the order. Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. He was down the order anyway behind the likes of a Haas and Alfa. So he's had a bit of a shocking qualifying and doesn't help his race out. Whilst his teammate was on the front row, he must have been like just at the back of Q3 or knocked out in Q2, just outside the top 10. But now he's got no front wing, and both Aston Martins indeed crashed into each other, and both have no front wing. So it's a disaster start for Aston Martin there. And now let's look at a replay of Leclerc's start. The pole man Verstappen gets a very good getaway, cuts across, but Leclerc keeps his outside line so fine. Bit of contact made, and Leclerc sails around the outside. Wow, the Ferrari bags P1 versus Verstappen here in front of his home crowd. He loses first place. Sergio Perez sends one down the inside of George Russell, going to get up into P3, but that's very surprising. So Leclerc Could Leclerc be stealing this win away from Verstappen in his backyard? That is very surprising. I thought Verstappen with that good launch had it, but he actually compromised his own run by going so defensive to the inside. Leclerc just thought, oh, okay, I'll just go around the outside, thank you very much. There you go. So here we are then on the restart. Lap 3 onto 4. We're up into P14 now due to Sainz and the two Astons making their pit stop. So already we've made pretty damn good progress to say we've had half a racing lap as we nearly barrel into the back of Alexander Albon. They're taking avoiding action. Bottas now side by side with Albon. Can we try and follow him through and kind of encourage him to overtake the Alfa Romeo? No, we can't. And instead we're stuck behind him at the carousel. Yellow flags behind, and I'm not going to lie, I think I saw the Aston Martins in the carousel going slow. You can't write this stuff. They're having such a horrendous race, it would seem, as we watch on Tsunoda stay ahead of Albon as Alex tried to get him, but he's got some damage, I think, as we now try and send one on the inside of the Williams car. But Tsunoda, I think he's got end plate damage, but just like we saw, I think, was it last episode or the episode before, where Schumacher had damage, and actually on this year's game, the AI can actually drive pretty okay with end plate damage. We've not had to drive ourselves with any kind of damage like that before, but you know, when the time comes, maybe at some point when I make a mistake and we break a bit of our front wing. I think on this year's game, like we saw with Leclerc in real life for the British Grand Prix, it's not too bad these days actually with a bit of end plate damage. As I was talking about that, we sail around the outside of Albon and Tsunoda, basically use Tsunoda's blockage as an invite to make a double overtake in the last sector. Very, very sweet. But here's a replay then, lap 4, and we're on board with Sainz then, having made that early pit stop for front wing breakage. He braked his front wing again! Oh, Carlos, mate, you can't. He's gone from winning the race in such a dominant fashion at Spa to a double front wing breakage, back to back. He's not actually finished a racing lap yet without breaking his front wing, and then the Aston Martins have an even worse start. Shocking. Shocking. Both Aston Martins are out. And you know what? They deserve it, because that's horrendous. How have the same 3 AI made the same mistake again? So now back to the racing action. Lap 6 at the sharp end. Leclerc in the lead, but look at this. It's a titanic scrap maybe brewing as Verstappen is well within 1 second here. Followed by Sergio Perez, Russell, Alonso in the top 5. Then Magnussen and a Haas sandwich for Pierre Gasly, doing very well though in the AlphaTauri, because the AlphaTauri is lower than us in the R&D chart. But Drogovic is in P9, doing very well in this race so far. Pressurized though by Lando Norris, and he makes a mistake. He cracks under pressure, and look at that. It's the first droplets of rain. The rain is starting to fall here around Zandvoort, and that is the moment where Drogovic made a mistake. So maybe a bit of a damp patch maybe into the brake zone, but Norris gets him up into P9. But at the banking, we could have a go at not only Bottas, but maybe even our teammate, as we all have DRS right now, and it's going to be 3 wide into turn 1. Oh, Bottas tries to go down the inside. Drogovic again makes a mistake, but we're making a mistake as we have a very shaky moment on the curb, and Drogovic re-overtakes us. He's on the soft compound, Drogovic is, so he's really gambled on this rain coming, and fair play to him because it was working. But I think lap 7, I think you can maybe see I'm struggling with the rain, but I think Drogovic is struggling because of his tyre wear maybe on the softs, but he does overtake us because it's so treacherous out here on the slick, so we have to be very tiptoeing around. I think it's very much time for the intermediate tyres there. So at the moment, Lando's made the most of that in P9, Bottas up into P10, and we're lining a stern in P11 and 12, but we are in. Drogovic continues on. Now, I didn't actually call to come in for that pit stop, so I was worried Drogovic was going to come in ahead of me and double stack me, but he actually stays out on his own accord. I didn't say to my engineer, I'll box in this lap, because if I did, that definitely would have guaranteed him staying out. So that's Drogovic's own side of the garage making that decision as we come out now behind Albon though. It was an optimal turn-in. I don't think we got held up with a pit stop error, but we've somehow ended up behind the Williams car now on the exit of the pits then. So Albon back ahead of us in P15 right now, but quite a few people still making their pit stops, including Drogovic, who stayed out now, but you can see it looks so wet, so I think he's made a howler of a decision. Perez has stayed out as well, so Verstappen and Leclerc both came in. Perez stayed out, and he's surely lost a lot of time to his teammate and those two, so it very much is going to be just Leclerc versus Verstappen at the sharp end. The Leclerc Leclerc's gained about a second in that round of pit stops there. Russell now into P3 as Perez comes out in P4 there. So that's how much time Sergio lost, and Drogovic has lost enough time to be all the way down in P15 then, behind Ricciardo, behind Hamilton in P14, who's been struggling in this race to make up the places. And this onboard here is actually from the same lap, essentially, from my view. Albon goes wide and nearly goes into the gravel trap there, so I was kind of hoping we could get the overtake done, but instead we just have to tuck in behind and maintain 11 as Schumacher came out the pit side by side with Ocon. Ocon just about gets the German, but Albon's in points now, so can we steal points away from Albon in P10? So once again, we are battling Albon in the Williams car. You know, there's been a few times he's been doing insanely well in a Williams that is literally the worst car on the grid, and he's beating us. But now, this is where you can see the difference in car as we go waltzing around the outside, dancing around the outside pretty much of him up into P10. Now, can we get our head down and do anything to chase after the two people we were fighting before the pit stop, Bottas and Norris? But because of that slow pit stop, you know, somehow we end up behind Albon. We've lost a lot of time to Valtteri and Lando up ahead. Meanwhile, Ocon feeling the pressure from Lewis Hamilton now as Ocon locks up and goes wide and nearly goes straight on just like Albon previously. So Hamilton recovering slowly in this race up into P12, but it's a far cry from where Russell is in P3 after that incident in Q1. But Ocon slow, and there's smoke coming out of the Alpine car. So it's gone from bad to worse for the Frenchman as he parks up and is out of this Grand Prix. So this really has been an action-packed one. We've only had 13 laps really, so we're about a third of the way through, but we've had so many battles, incidents, crashes, and an engine failure now with Ocon. But we are there in P10, but the gap is growing to Bottas. The gap is now 7 seconds, this is, on lap 13 to when we initially overtook Albon. It was only like 3 seconds. So Bottas, Norris, they're chasing down Gasly, and all three of them have too much pace for me. Even though Gasly's in a slower car, he's not really holding up Norris and Bottas as much as I was hoping for. Fernando Alonso doing an excellent job in the top 5, but Magnussen might try and close him down. Russell ahead of Perez, of course, with that pit stop debacle with Perez going 1 lap longer. And then this is, well, just a tense battle. If this was real life, the tension would be quite high, but at the moment Leclerc is soaking up the pressure from Verstappen in his home race and is looking to try and cause an upset for the Dutchman around the Netherlands. But right now, Alonso, he's slow. Magnussen is gaining on him, and I've actually been told by my engineer that Alonso has a mechanical issue and will be slow, so we know that this can be a problem for the AI. It's a temporary thing, but how much damage will this do to Alonso's race before that issue is resolved for him in the car? Right now he's overtaken by Magnussen, and now Gasly, Norris and Bottas are pretty damn close behind him, so Alonso, if he's not careful, could be down to P9, and if his problems continue, we could even catch him maybe. So we'll watch out for that and see how that goes. But Hamilton down the inside of Albon at the carousel. This could be an overtake and a half. Albon goes a bit too deep into the left-hander, and now Hamilton carries the speed. Bit of contact made, but Hamilton executes a beautiful overtake on Albon that started down the inside at the carousel. Wow, what a move there by Hamilton, and now he is right behind me in lap 17, and we are not going to fight him because he is in a much quicker car. Look at where Russell is. I know we literally fought Russell so hard at Spa, literally last episode, but that was a very different scenario. I was trying to help Drogovic out. In this kind of scenario, if I fight Hamilton, all I'm doing is we're going to slow each other down. We're going to fall into the hands of Albon and Schumacher, you know, anyone behind basically, and we're only fighting for P10 right now, so let's be patient. And to be honest, at this stage of the race, I'm kind of hoping that Alonso's issue that is still going on is going to be going on long enough that I can overtake him for P10 when he eventually goes down the order. But Lando trying to make an overtake and gets it all crossed up on the front end, locks up, and now he's side by side with the Alfa Romeo. So the McLaren tried to get the Alpine, but instead is fighting the Alfa, who's been behind him the entire time. Those two now side by side. Bottas really trying to give it a good go, and he might do it, you know, on the outside. This is a great battle in the middle sector. It's so fine, and these two are still side by side through this entire section. Eventually, the McLaren gives up the position, and it's going to be Bottas now that can have a go at Fernando Alonso on the inside, and he's going to get the move. Alonso's now wide with a similar lock-up to the one Lando made earlier. So that's Bottas who is up into P7, and Lando will have to try again, but as he looks to make the overtake on to lap 20 behind...
I've got some information on Hamilton for you. They've got some kind of mechanical problem.
As those two go into turn 1 and make some contact, Alonso maybe got some damage, but Hamilton now also has a mechanical issue. So the two cars ahead of us are there for the taking. We could get some extra points in this battle we have with McLaren. In the constructors as now Lando Norris has made a mistake. He's spun at the carousel. He's facing backwards, and we go the long way around to avoid him just about. If we took the inside line, we would definitely have hit him because I was understeering. I wasn't hitting the apex like Hamilton and Alonso were. So we were definitely going to hit him unless we went to the outside there. Lucky I did. But look at this then. Hamilton and Alonso pretty much playing who can be the slowest. And we're going to send one down the inside of the Mercedes. The man who we waved by earlier because he was so quick off the corner into this section. We've just overtaken him going into this section so easily because of the mechanical issue. It's still very tricky out there as we go opposite lock and we drift through the left-hander, but Alonso is going to be susceptible. We've got a lot of ERS to play with because in the wet conditions you save so much battery because your car's just not deploying that much every corner. So it's very easy, even without any ERS upgrades, to just deploy ERS down these straights in wet conditions, and that's going to help us massively just fly by Alonso, I think, into turn 1, hopefully, as we're a bit, careful on the throttle on the banking. But now onto lap 21, Alonso is going to be slow, and we just send it with confidence, knowing that he's got issues. He does try to come back at us then for the switchback, and he actually is side by side with us, but he's got that mechanical issue, so he's got no real defense there, and we are up the order. But let's retake a look then at this whole kind of, sequence of corners. So Lando down the inside of Fernando Alonso there. They both have a bit of a weird turn 1. Make some contact there. Slow each other down. At this point, I've learned about Hamilton having the issue. So Hamilton is closing up, but he's slow as well. And then, well, it's a very weird spin, but I guess he just gets the rear stepped out, got on the throttle too early, and then just span it. And then that's how lucky we got, taking that outside line. Looks very amusing, really, from that camera angle, just going so high on that left-hander corner to avoid the McLaren, but we do so thankfully, and we're up into P8 because of it. So this race has really turned around for us from the back of the grid, maybe, as Verstappen comes in. Leclerc continues on for the race lead, but Verstappen comes in. Is this a two-stop? Do they think the tyre wear on the Inters is too much? Because Russell's in, but Perez stays out. So is this going to be a bit of a swap of strategy? Will this time Perez stay out and Verstappen's the one who's come in earlier? But this might be a mistake because for me personally, I'm going to the end of my Inters. I don't think I should pit. Bottas is in. Magnussen did not come in, so he's in P3 right now. Gasly's up into P5, and yeah, there we are now. We're up into P7 because of Bottas coming in. I'm going to the end, and Gasly appears to be. Magnussen, Perez, Leclerc might be, but Verstappen, Russell, and Bottas have decided to come in for another set of Inters. Do they know something we don't? Like, is a new set of Inters really going to be that much quicker? Let's see. Verstappen, lap 22. He is quick enough to catch Magnussen in the Haas at least, but he's still got a massive gap now to Sergio Perez as he goes round the outside of the Dane to get up back into the podium positions, P3. But he's now got an 11-second gap to close on Perez with, what's that? 13 laps to go. That's going to be some ask, really, of him, as Russell now is closing up on Gasly, and we see Hamilton so slow in this race now with that mechanical issue. That Schumacher's overtaken him, so kind of redoing the real-life vibes of Schumacher versus Hamilton there. And now we're moving into the last lap of this Grand Prix. Leclerc dominating this race. Perez's intermediates have gone off a little bit because Leclerc's 14 seconds ahead of him, and Verstappen has caught him. So is this going to be team orders on the last lap of the Grand Prix? Perez holds station. This is a bit controversial, because not only is it Verstappen's home Grand Prix, he's losing out the win to Leclerc, having been on pole position, and now his teammates not letting him by on the last lap. So that's more points Leclerc will gain on Verstappen in the championship. Magnussen in P4, Gasly P5 is holding Russell up despite being on the fresher intermediates. And here we are just vibing. You know, since we made that move on Alonso and Hamilton, I've had no action, but I've just been going about my business, just being consistent, just making sure we don't crash, basically. And we've gained that extra position from Bottas pitting up into P7. Drogovic, meanwhile, P12. He's had a bit of an annoying, quieter race ever since that blunder by going one lap longer on the dry tyres. But he's done well still to be ahead of Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, you've got to say, actually. But the man of the day, the driver of the day probably, is going to be Charles Leclerc, because he gets the win at the Dutch Grand Prix. He does it in Verstappen's backyard from second place, you know. What a crucial overtake that proved to be on lap 1. And look at this, Sergio Perez will be the Red Bull that finishes second. Verstappen does not get the flyby, does not get the wave through. That is going to be a sticky situation for this team if it boils down to these 3 points at the end of the season. Can you imagine if Verstappen loses it by 3 points to Leclerc because of this race where he's pit again and Perez is not, and not let him by? That would be insane. But that's a massive, massive win for Leclerc to get a load of points on Verstappen as we finish up in that lucky number P7 from last place. And what is it about us and last place and getting to P7? It's unbelievable. Today, again, so many crashes, spins, and just I've got to admit, just a lot of luck came our way today. I can't really, you know, we did quite well to keep this thing in a straight line and, you know, have a little bit of pace, but a lot of things just went our way, and I'm not complaining. P7, very, very solid.
A difficult race then on a circuit that demands complete concentration, but they've persevered to take the win here today. Natalie Pinkham, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
I think that smart tyre management on track and very smooth driving definitely assisted in their victory today. That combination meant they got the absolute maximum out of their tyres at all times.
Here come our winners now. A thrilling race and a tremendous effort by Ferrari. Their history is well known, so it's no surprise to fans the world over to see them come out on top once again.
Well, there we have it. That's going to be a really satisfying win for the man from Ferrari, winning it in Verstappen's home country. And he's going to, with this win, take the lead back of the Drivers' Championship. So that's rubbing more salt into the wounds here today. And that man Perez has denied Verstappen even getting second place to limit the damage there. So that could come to be a very important race, but it was a thrilling race here at Zandvoort. Action from the get-go, literally not even half a lap, a third of a lap, and we got that safety car. So much action at the start there with some accidents, then some spins and thrills in the wet, and we just kept our nose clean, kept it steady. Didn't have an insane pace, but just kept it on the road and gained those free positions from those pit stops as well with Bottas there, and we remain in the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship somehow. But yeah, Leclerc takes the lead. Mercedes, what could have been? Hamilton, I think, you know, if he was up there with Russell, they could have again gained some more points from Ferrari, but they lose a bit of ground to them in the constructors. But a very topsy-turvy roller coaster race here at the Dutch Grand Prix. Guys, if you have enjoyed it, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.